One of the things that happened in the House last week when this bill was passed, H.R. 1, for those of you who want to go back and read it, is that it passed only with Democratic votes. Now, President Obama tried very hard to get Republicans on the roll call, but it just did not happen. So, Ms. Donatello, what would you think, what would perhaps you sacrifice in order to get GOP votes for this measure?
Firstly, I'd like to say that I think that President Obama did an excellent job of reaching out and satisfying the requests of the Republicans in the House. He met with them privately, as they requested, personally, and he listened to their concerns. The overwhelming comments from that party was that they felt he truly listened to their concerns. I find it suspect that every member of that party had an honest and genuine disagreement with that bill. It just defies common sense that not even one or two Republicans felt that they would support that stimulus bill. I think we have done quite well in increasing tax cuts to satisfy the Republican Party. And I think that probably some more serious negotiation needs to continue. I think if we have more transparency and oversight and there's more confidence that the money is going to be spent in ways that truly benefit our society, infrastructure, for example.
It's time.
We can rebuild our economy, and I think that will build confidence across the system.
Okay, Paul, the same question for you. How important is it, since it is a Democratic majority in the House, to get GOP votes in this measure?
Well, I think that in this particular bill, getting it passed, they have a majority, they don't need it. But I think this is very important to set a precedent for what will happen in the future. There will not be unanimous Democratic support for future bills. There will not be unanimous Republican opposition to future bills. So I think that getting some of them on board is extremely important. Your question was, what are some things that can be done to make that happen in conference? And perhaps dropping some of the things in a stimulus package that really don't have much to do with stimulus.
And that would be?
Such as, things which I personally agree with, funding for the arts, which we definitely need. That doesn't really belong in the stimulus package. And I think that part of what we should do going forward is truth in advertising. What bills say they do, let's have them say what they do in the bill.
Mr. Fritchie, same question.
Those who know me know I have a history of working across party lines. I did it when it came to ending pay to play. I did it when it came to challenging mandatory prayer in schools. At the end of the day, you do not do it simply for looks. We're the Democratic Party. We stand for something. If we can get a bill through on their own to advance our principles, we should do that. Now, at all times, if we can build consensus when we need to, do that. But never shy away who we are and what we stand for in order to reach our goals.
Now, let me recast this, because Mr. Quigley, I also want to incorporate this extra element in this. Do you think that President Obama has just been too solicitous of the Republican Party at this stage?
Well, not at this point, because he's dealing with a PR issue that isn't critical now, but it will be down the line. As things get tougher and the issues become, and the economy doesn't turn around overnight, he's going to need everyone's help. I mean, there's only so much you can do here, and I do believe he did everything in this package to try to get Republican support. Strangely enough, from Republicans some of them who said nothing about the TARP fiasco when President Bush was pushing those issues and the fallout was taking place. But I will say, too, that there are those of us who can work across party lines. Strangely enough, almost a third of the county board is Republican, and with maybe one exception, they're very easy to work with. And quite frankly, a lot of the reform measures that we actually did get passed in Cook County happened because of bipartisan support.
Another provision, I'm still on the stimulus bill, but another aspect of it. One of the very controversial aspects of this bill is the Buy American provision in the plan. There's a lot of ways to think about it. Mr. Nunzio, would you support or not the Buy American provisions in the stimulus package?
Quite honestly, I think the Buy American provision is something that we should consider, but honestly, with the minimal amount that the bill stands for as far as the infrastructure is concerned, we'd be better suited not to have that across the board. And one of the main reasons is it's actually a lot cheaper to get materials from overseas, and we'd like to have the best stimulus package on infrastructure that we possibly can. That being said, I'd also was the only person who suggested I wouldn't vote for the bill in its current condition. And that specifically is because of the amount of dollars that the infrastructure portion holds. Quite honestly, the only way to really help and get something for your money and create jobs is to make sure that the middle class working people in the trades and in the construction industry, which was hit hardest than any other industry in the country, gets back to work, along with the help with the unions to make the middle class strong.
Thank you. Mr. Whalen, your hand's up on the same point. Buy America.
I think it's a well-meaning but very poorly designed piece of the stimulus, in part because it simply raises the cost of government and makes your taxpayer dollars go not nearly as far. So we talked earlier about the importance of fixing up the brown line, the blue line. If you got to buy steel that's 20% more expensive, then fixing up the brown line, the blue line will cost 20% more. And it would be very similar to coming home to your wife or husband and saying, honey, I'm only going to buy American, and now our food is going to cost more, our cars will cost more, and so on. It's also very difficult these days to discern what is made in America. There was an article not long ago that a Toyota has more American components than many General Motors cars. So I think basically the idea, the fundamental responsibility of government is to decide what it ought to do and then do it as cheaply and efficiently as possible. This part of the bill is inimical to that.
Okay, Victor, your views.
Well, I disagree because that Buy American provision will increase the velocity of money, and it'll increase the velocity of money here in the United States. We don't need to increase the velocity of money leaving the United States. We need to increase the velocity of money in the United States in order for the stimulus to work. So in the short run, that's a good thing. Now, if something costs a little more, that's okay because it's going to increase the velocity of money, and that's going to pull us out of the recession because we have to put money into people's pockets, people who work in America. We're not going to get out of this crisis by putting money into the pockets of people who work in China.
Mr. Kagan.
As a labor lawyer, I've seen way too many companies in this country, especially in the Midwest, go belly up. But what will bring them back is not Buy America provisions, and what will bring back the middle class life we want to protect are not Buy America provisions. I'm running because I feel very strongly that the government has to pick up the costs of providing real pensions and real health care so we don't have debacles like GM and Chrysler. We can lower our unit labor costs and compete globally much more effectively. This is the answer to getting down the trade deficit, which is at the heart of the current economic crisis. Buy America provisions are Band-Aids. I'm not necessarily against them, but they're smoke and mirrors to avoid dealing with the real structural problems of the trade deficit, which require the government to pick up the costs, non-wage labor costs, that will make us more competitive.
Ms. Donatelli, and then Mr. Quigley, and then I'll move on to another question.
Thank you. This is Jan Donatelli. As a proud union member, I strongly stand for Buy American provisions, and I'd like to tell you why. 20-plus years ago, our nation started on a cycle. We wanted to buy everything cheaper. We didn't advocate for where it was made. We didn't worry about where it was made. What a great deal. We got a bargain. Well, I'm sorry, but that has all come home to roost now. We have no strong garment makers association in the United States anymore. We have no strong carpet mills, furniture manufacturers. We are suffering as far as jobs in this country, and one of the strengths we have is we also have some of the strongest safety regulations in the world. We've had dramatic problems lately with imported items from China, for example. Food, pet food, baby food, lead on toys. Until we can firstly ascertain the safety and demand inspections for every other product, I strongly support Buy American. Let's keep the jobs at home.